Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting, very weird little knife right here. This is the Spyderco Smock. First off though, in the name of full disclosure, I want to thank Spyderco for sending this little guy along. This guy was sent to me directly from Spyderco. I told them, as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be a junk. They still sent it along. But we have to assume two things. A, this is the best quality controlled smock ever, and B, that basically I'm doing my best not to let that affect my review. But there it is in the name of full disclosure. Afterwards, I will do a charitable giveaway with this guy down the road. Keep an eye out for a mega post about that. But yeah, so anyways, that'll happen probably in a couple of months, likelihood. But anyways, so there you go. Next thing, size comparison. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 1, the Ontario Rat number 2, and as always, by tradition, Spyderco Delica. So you can see here in terms of actual usable blade length, we're not that far off from the Delica, but the knife is itself substantially bigger, as well as a little bit thicker overall. The overall approach to this knife is not absurdly thick, but it's definitely a blocky little guy right here. So there you go. Next thing, this guy is kind of interesting in that you have seen a preview of it already on the channel. The very first night that I got this guy, took it apart, noticed something really, really weird about it, namely a second detent, which is unusual. And so I went ahead, I posted a disassembly video, and I also gave some initial thoughts on it. So you've seen this already before, but this is the actual full review. And actually, one of the things is that you've seen a version of this knife already before on the channel. This is a knife that is designed by Kevin Smock, created with Spyderco. The thing with Smock is that he's got a custom line, and I reviewed way back when an SK23. That was one that I picked up for a good price and sent on the way to a buddy, but I actually, at the time, went ahead and ordered another SK23 for myself. I got in his books, and I actually paid full price to, help him out, basically, and also gave a little discount there. That was about 3 years ago, thereabouts, and yeah, no knife yet. And the thing is, I'm not the only person in the community who's had this situation. My understanding is that he just took way too many orders and couldn't dig out in time, and I hear he's had some health issues, and I'm sympathetic to the extent that I can be, but that's a really ugly situation. And I've actually had a number of people contact me and say, Nick, why are you publicizing this? Why are you giving this guy the time of day? At some level, yeah, there's a question there, but at the same time, the simple fact is that this is a very unique knife. It is unlike really anything else out there. There are no other button lock, compression lock knives out there. This is the best compression lock. Well, frankly, I'd argue this is one of the best compression lock knives ever made by Spyderco, and the compression lock flipper, this beats them all. And so I think even though it's somewhat distasteful for me, given that whole situation, it would be a disservice to pass this little guy up. There's a lot of interest in the community, and frankly, I shouldn't punish the knife for the sins of the father, so to speak. You can disagree, but at the same time, given that I am kind of the aggrieved party here, I've made my call, and this is the reason I've done that. But you can check out my review of the custom knife, which, by the way, I liked a lot. If he ends up making me one, I'll be happy about that. But still, if you're detecting a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, that is exactly from that. So there you go. Let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very, very interesting knife. So on the good side, to start with, actually, the price on this guy, I feel like, is pretty fine. The price comes in here at about $160. Now, that puts it up against some pretty serious competition, things like your Benchmade 940, even more so your Spyderco Capara, which is one of the very best knives that Spyderco's dropped in a long time. I think this is not out of line. That's not a bad price for this knife whatsoever. And so, I'm pretty okay with it. But, it's definitely up there against some greats, and considering it's past things like the PM2, etc., yeah, but I think the price on this is actually solid, given that the tight chunk construction is really good here. The action is out of the freaking park. They've got a lot of good stuff here, and so for that price, I'm pretty happy with it. S30V, etc. Next thing, the second detent thing. So, look, practically speaking, does it make much of a difference for me? I don't know. I mean, it could be. As you watch in the disassembly video, you'll see that they have actually installed a second detent ball that's riding on top of a little spring, presses up into the blade here. I've heard people hypothesize that this is, it could be for detent strength. I've also heard a really good explanation that it could be for legal reasons, because otherwise, if you press this button, then the blade would just fall shut, which would make this, by some definitions, an automatic or a gravity knife. And so I can understand why Spyderco might want to have done that anyways. Maybe it's just, I don't freaking know. But either way, look, the fact that they were willing to make the design at all, and the fact that they were willing to do what it takes to get it out there, particularly if this were for detent strength, which, by the way, the detent on this is really great. This is the best compression lock flipper detent I've ever seen from, well, anybody, maybe Smock accepted. So I do appreciate, though, that they did something weird in service to doing this knife. I mean, I think it's worked out well, whatever the heck reason it was for. That's good. Next thing, speaking of which, the action, this is pretty great. This has a really, really good action. It deploys readily with all the methods. I mean, the best method to deploy this guy is using the flipper tab, which is literally just the back chunk of the knife here. And that allows you to deploy it, no problem. Zero wrist here. Boom, no freaking problem. That's good, but you can also use your thumb to pop it out of there. You can finger flick it because it's accessible from both sides. And by the way, it is more or less a completely ambidextrous knife. Lefties might have problems with accidentally hitting the button here is the only issue if they're not gripping, properly or carefully. Although even still, I don't think it'll be a huge deal, but the simple fact is this is an ambi knife, so it helps if I actually fully lock the blade before I try and flip it, But anyways, the action on this guy is great, and it has a fidget factor that is just amazing. I mean, you're seeing me just as I'm casually filming this review, just doing this back and forth. I mean, I'm sure my wife just hates this knife at this point, because I'm just like, it's really hard not to flip it about, so that's kind of cool. Next thing, the flipper tab on this is the best flipper tab ever, at least in my estimation. The reason I say that is because so many flipper-style knives have big old tabs hanging at the base of CRKT titanium crossbones. Right here are the Wee Knives Deacon. All of these little guys here have a flipper tab that's kind of sticking out the back side of it, and that's not amazing because it's going to be packing on whatever's in your pocket all day. This is literally just a sheet of metal. It's the back of the knife here just sticks out, and that gives you enough purchase to pop this little guy open. Now, it makes sense that this happens, but I think it would only really work with a compression lock, because on your average frame lock, down in this region here where you would do that, that's actually the lock face. And so I don't know that you'd want to put your finger up against the lock face to flip the knife open. Who knows? But either way, I really appreciate it. It is absolutely zero profile. It is very easy. It's very good to use, etc. Maybe I wish they'd done a little jimping down here, just some very light texturing to make it so you don't ever slip off this guy. The simple fact is it works great. Best flipper tab ever. Next thing, this guy has a really, really nice blade. It has a very super thin grind. I mean, as you can see here, this thins right out of there. Comes down to a thin edge here. This is great for cutting. And considering that the stock itself isn't all that thick, here, we'll go ahead and measure that one up here. We are coming in stock thickness-wise, 0.1 inches. Yeah, that's good. Considering they're coming in at a good stock thickness and grinding it down thin, yes, indeed. And an S30V steel. Yeah, that's pretty solid. There you go. So, yeah, that's great. And then finally, on the good side, what the heck else is like this knife? I mean, I ask of you, putting aside the Smock XK23 custom that this is based on, is there anything else in the knife world that is like that? Because it's not a button lock, it's a compression lock. And by the way, that is one thing to, highlight there. It's got this weird flipper tab. It's got a blade shape that's completely unusual. Love it or hate it, this is unlike anything else in the freaking world. And that's part of the reason why I felt like I really did need to review it, no matter my own personal feelings on some of those matters. So, this is a really, really weird, unique piece, and I love the fact that Spyderco did it. I mean, they're really the only maker who could do it, given that it's using the compression lock, but still, I mean, it would have been real easy for them to say, no, that's weird. But no, they went for it. I'm glad they did. So, to me at least, that's what's good here, is that it is a unique knife. It is a stellar blade for actually cutting things. It's the best flipper tab ever. Stellar action, 2nd to 10. The price is absolutely fine. To the great side, honestly, I feel like this is the best compression lock knife ever. Actually, let me prove my point real quick. Well, prove my opinion. Yeah, that doesn't work. Let me grab a compression lock knife here. I should have had one ready. This right here is the Spyderco Shaman. This is a very, very nice knife. An absolute favorite. This is from my personal collection. But the way that a compression lock works is that you have this little leaf here that kind of pops over in between this stop pin here in the bottom of the blade. So there's kind of a little cutout in the blade that you can see there that the stop pin pops into. Great, cool. The problem with most compression locks, not that it's a big problem, but is that you disengage it. It has to be this cutout on the top there, and so you disengage it by kind of pressing this, pinching this together, which gets that out of the way, and allows the blade to kind of drop shut there. And look, it works great, absolutely 100%. I mean, I like the compression lock a lot. I think it's one of my very favorite lock mechanisms. But this, I think this works better, because what he's done here is it is still a compression lock. If we watch here, it's backwards relative to what you were just seeing, but there's that little liner that pops up between the stop pin here and the blade bottom there. But then attached to that liner is this button here, and so when you press the button, it pushes that liner out of the way, allowing the blade to basically fall shut under its own weight. And so this just works amazingly, because it means that the flipping action here is, well, it's damn near perfect anyways. But it also just makes it so easy to operate. There's no question of, like, reorienting your hand. And by the way, this is a, oh my God, this is terrible. But still, you don't have to reorient your hand. You can basically be in the same position you're using the knife in, and then drop it shut like that. Your fingers are nowhere near the slicing pad at any point. This almost, like I said, I mean, it's not a button lock in the classical sense at all, but it just has all of the, it feels like it's the best of both worlds to me. And so I really, really hope desperately that this is not the last compression lock knife in this style. I hope that this is not the last time we see a Smock-style button compression lock. I hope that some part of whatever deal has allowed this to happen has included the option for Spyderco to do this more often, because, oh my God, do they need to do this more often. Compression lock is a great lock functionally, and this, I really feel like, makes it even better. So, to me, what is absolutely great, and unquestionably what is the great about it, is that button compression lock approach. It's just the best way to do a compression lock, in my estimation. So, to me, that's what's great here. On the bad side, first off, a big note on the choil. The button lock compression lock does have one major issue with it. That is the fact that, well, you've got this big button sitting in the middle of things. This button here has to live inside the handle, and it has to cross the entirety of the handle, which means that you cannot have the blade where that button is. And so actually a lot of people look at this finger choil like, oh my God, do you need that much sharpening choil? Well, it's going to be easy to sharpen, that's for damn sure. But the reason that that is there, at least in my estimation, I'm not a knife maker, I am not a Spyderco, but nevertheless, the reason that that is there is that that allows the blade to shut around this little, basically, button here. You can see here that the alignment-wise, that works out. And so in order for the blade to nest into a handle with this button in it, this needs to be here. And you see a big choil like that in the original SK23 as well. It is actually a finger choil. You can actually choke up with it if you want to for some reason. But that is the reason for this. That's the reason it's so big and so deep. When you go this button compression lock route, at least with present technology, that's how you end up having to do it. It's a price you're paying, certainly, but I don't think it's a bad price, and so I don't list that as being bad. I think that's just the nature of the beast when you're doing this approach, which is pretty compelling. So, there you go. Next thing on the bad side that I think actually is a little bit bad is that the style on this guy is polarizing. Personally, I actually prefer the SK23. Not only do I like the full Wharncliffe blade a little bit more, because, you know, if you're doing a Warnie, just do a freaking Warnie and be done with it here. But I just, for me at least, a couple of the things that they've done here, for instance, this carbon fiber isn't doing it for me super much. The holes, yeah, they're a smocky thing. I don't know, for some reason, it's got this weird blend of boxy and curvy that just doesn't seem to do it for me. I'd almost rather they'd gone full-on Boxtastic and, you know, I don't know, make the damn thing out of voxels or something. But anyways, I'm not a big fan of the, I mean volumetric pixels, not voxel like the car. That's a different thing. Anyways, sorry, voxel. Okay, back at the ranch. So the styling on this guy is definitely polarizing, though. The wife is not a big fan of the styling. I think it's okay. I like the custom, though, a little bit more. Whatever, not a big deal. Next thing that I find to be not a big deal, although I'm not a huge fan of it here, is the scales on this guy. This is, the Spyderco is doing that thing where they put some carbon fiber on top of some G10 here. So it's carbon fiber on the very top, G10 underneath. Not a big fan of it. Honestly, it's not the most attractive thing ever. It doesn't really do it for me. I can think of many materials I'd like to see more. At the same time, I guess it's a little nicer than just basic G10. I don't know. Whatever it is, a lot of folks are really bothered by that. And compared to like the carbon fiber we saw in the Capara, where it was this beautiful, I wish I had it handy with me at the moment. It's with a buddy for review. But anyways, I really desperately wish that we had that very nice. Oh, actually, here you go. This is an example of some beautiful carbon fiber on the Wee Knives Deacon here. Hey, yeah. I'm kind of digging the Deacon, that kind of approach a little bit more. So there are other materials I'd have preferred. Whatever, not a huge deal. The lanyard lobby appears to have won again. Eric Glesser, blink twice if the lanyard people have you at gunpoint. I mean, in all seriousness, I don't see a strong reason why this clip couldn't be up higher, except that would then preclude a lanyard hole. But honestly, Spyderco has the technology to deal with this. You've got things like this, where you've got a clip that has an integral lanyard hole, and I think if they move that up there and use that clip, you'd get a slightly deeper carry, which is nice, and frankly, I don't know. I did try it using this Lynch deep carry clip here. Got a little better in some ways, but, you know, at the same time, that's not something I'm in love with. And I don't know what the lanyard people have on Spyderco. There's some kind of compromat going on situation, I think. I have no reason to believe that. Whatever. Back beside the point. Next thing, this guy's a little bit on the heavier side. Now, it's not actually heavy, but a lot of knives these days are getting delightfully lightweight. This is coming in at 3.6 ounces for 3.3 inches. Not a huge deal, but it's a little on the heavier side. I'll also say I prefer the sharpening choil on the original one, on the original SK23. That's much more rounded. It feels much... This almost has an axy look to it. It's like a beard or something to it. Not a huge thing, but whatever. You can tell I'm really nitpicking here. I'm trying to be objective, but it's a little hard. Next thing, the detent number 2. I talked about that already in the disassembly. What you saw, though, is that it is not captive. It is just a little ball with a little spring in there. It's easy enough to work with. I think if you know about it and you're careful, that's part of the reason I put that review up first, is so people didn't take it apart. It was like, boing, and it's off, you know, halfway into freaking orbit around Venus. Nevertheless, it'd be nice to see that captive, I guess. That's one advantage that the Emerson-style secondary detent has, where it's basically a second little liner lock that's where the ball is kind of mounted up in there, so that way it's constantly attached. Whatever. Okay. Probably the worst thing about this knife, in my estimation, are the ergonomics on this. The ergos are just not great in a couple of ways. To start with, this jimping is awful. I really, really dislike this jimping, and compared to all the other jimping that Spyderco does, this is just sharp on the inside, and it just feels really ugly. Like, every damn time I touch this jimping, I regret it vaguely. I mean, sure, I'm textured, but I don't need that much texturing. The knife's got plenty going on with it. I just really dislike this jimping. I wish desperately that they'd done something closer to this, that would just make life better. But also, you've got the fact that the clip on this guy is quite tall. You've got the ramp area down here. I mean, overall, it's not terrible in the hand. It's absolutely usable. It's not like sack full of hedgehogs kind of bad ergonomics, but it's not what I'm expecting out of Spyderco. I mean, Spyderco drops these knives that just fit your hand like a freaking glove, and then you get something like this, and that just draws a contrast. And especially the jimping is bad. Frankly, I could call that ugly. But whatever it is, the ergos on this are definitely the weakest point of the knife. I think it's a solid piece, but those ergos are, yeah, not a huge fan. So, to me at least, that's what's bad here, is that the ergos aren't great. Detent number 2 is not captive. I do prefer the original straight Warncliffe and the original finger-shaped finger choil here. It is a little bit heavy. The lanyard lobby appears to have won again. The carbon fiber on G10 thing, the style's polarizing, and for some people the choil's going to be bothersome, although functionally speaking it kind of has to happen, I believe. And then on the ugly front, look, I mean, the Smock situation, a little ugly, but, you know, aside from that, the knife's freaking fine. So, final conclusion for me, this is a weird knife. I mean, it is fundamentally weird, just in every damn way. I mean, it is a button compression lock. That's weird. Has a pseudo Warncliffe blade. That's weird. It is kind of a triumph of function over form, although I don't think in necessarily the worst way ever. But it is also really compellingly so, because it has a fidgety action that is just an absolute joy to play with. That's not what a knife is for, obviously. Some people argue that's what it's for in my life, but whatever. It's a really, really nice piece in that way, and so it's fundamentally weird, but I think it's weird in a good way. I've handled a lot of knives that are just like weird in the what are you thinking sense. No, this is good weird. That said, it's got some downsides. It is absolutely not the most ergonomic knife Spyderco has made. It's designed by a maker who, much like any modern postmodern author, has books that feel like they're never going to freaking end. The clip position is a little bit weird, and the design is absolutely not going to be for everybody. But at some level, to me, this knife is yet another example of Spyderco doing what they frankly do best, which is just being weird as heck. This is not... I have made many videos asking why. Like, why did you just release another flipper frame lock? What is different about what you're doing here? What is new? What are you doing? Why did your knife need to exist? This is not that. This is not another knife. This, well, I mean, it is another knife, practically speaking, but it's so freaking different. It's unusual. And I think it's an interest. At the very, very worst, this is a neat proof of concept for actual production. Putting the button lock, compression lock into production, putting this little back tab here. At the very, very least, I think this shows an opening of the design space, which is a very, very good thing. And I really desperately hope that Spyderco does bring other elements of this into future pieces. This button lock, oh, please, Spyderco. I hope, I pray, I dream. But the thing is, it's also a pretty damn compelling knife on its own. On days that I carried it, I liked carrying it a lot. It is a very, very, very nice knife. My relationship with this knife is certainly complicated in part because of that smock factor. It's very hard for me, and I'll freely admit this. This has been a review where I've had to fight my own bias a little bit. It's hard for me to give a recommendation with that baggage on the table, and if anything, I'm likely being much more harsh on this than I would be otherwise. I kind of want to spend some more time with it. This might actually be a gem, but my heart is just embittered. There you go. That's the verb. But I don't know. But what I can absolutely 100% say is that this is a great functional tool, and I did enjoy carrying it. That's a really good sign. It is also weird. It has a few little downsides here, but overall, there is a lot to love about the Smock here, and, you know, no matter my own complicated set of emotions aside, I think that you will have a very, very good sense as to whether you're not really feeling it, or whether you feel like Spyderco has actually smocked this one right out of the park. Get it? Smack? Smock? No? Okay. Anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you. Like I said, there is a lot to love about this guy, and I'm doing my best over here to be objective, but like I said, it's a good knife. You buy one, you're going to be very happy with it, I suspect. And, yeah, so there you go. Hope this is interesting, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Now to go review something I don't have deep personal conflicted emotions on. Bye now.